In this channel, we bring you the freshest discussions taking place in Japan's online community.
In the past, Dunhuang in Gansu province, known for the Silk Road, was swarmed with Japanese tourists. However, the number has plummeted to just 160th of its peak. And the locals are now calling out, "We warmly welcome you back." Even today, it's a region with many Buddhists and a strong sense of closeness to Japan.
There's no reason to visit rural China as a tourist. Even in big cities, you might get arrested for spying. And it's probably even worse in the countryside. These days in China, you could get arrested just for taking pictures with your phone. I'm interested in Dunhuang, but I'd only go if the Communist Party collapses and the dictatorship ends. Plus, it's near a nuclear testing site, so the area might be contaminated with radiation. With the yen being so weak, it's just not feasible for Japanese people to travel there anymore. Will China ever stop being a dictatorship? The Soviet Union collapsed and became Russia. But that didn't turn out well either. I'd love to visit Dunhuang, but I'm too scared of getting suddenly detained by the Chinese government. It wouldn't be sudden. They'd probably follow you around for a few days first. I went to Tibet but got released. So you did get caught. Russia needs soldiers right now. Isn't it really hard to get a visa for China these days? Plus, handling money there is a hassle, and I heard using credit cards can be tricky. Was it about 40 years ago? The Silk Road program and its music were so peaceful and nice. I heard some of the filming crew got acute leukemia. Not sure why, though. I think it's rare to find tourist spots you want to visit multiple times. Usually, once is enough. Before tourism, they should sort out how they treat people, considering how sketchy their diplomatic relations are. I heard they hyped up the Silk Road to cover up their nuclear tests. Traveling there sounds risky. I've heard stories from people who visited in the past about being swarmed by beggars. During Deng Xiaoping's era, China was more relaxed and laid back. But Xi Jinping has made it terrible. First, they need to simplify the visa process, make card payments universal, and accept international driving licenses. Are people really traveling to China just to end up in prison? And Japan always has a trade deficit with China. That needs fixing too. Traveling there isn't the priority. China has changed since Xi Jinping took over from Hu Jintao. About 10 years ago in Shanghai, I kept seeing police or military marches, which I never saw 20 years ago. It must be even more controlled now. Haneda, Narita, and Kansai international flights are so limited compared to the numerous flights at Shanghai, Pudong and Beijing international airports. That was before China's bubble burst. Now those airports are practically empty, with barely any flights. Isn't China a country where you could get the death penalty just for mentioning Taiwan independence? How's that different from the worst times in Rwanda? I'd love to freely drive an SUV along the southern route of the Tianshan Mountains. If America starts excluding China, what'll happen to them? Maybe they'll be made to fight on the front lines. Old China was charming and laid back, but now it's overly touristy with too many souvenir shops, just like Japanese tourist spots. Visiting now would just be tiring, and it's dangerous. The Totora sand dunes are enough for me. You'd probably end up in a forced labor camp with forced sterilization. If you go there, if you visit China, you might end up being a test subject for their next bioweapon. You guys have criticized Xi Jinping too much, so you'll be judged by Chinese law. I heard they enforce their domestic laws even abroad. Machiavelli said, "A country that aids its neighbors will perish." People who got to travel in China in the past were lucky. It was genuinely interesting back then. They should just make a VR China instead. I'd like to see it once. I want to see firsthand how ancient Western cultures traveled through the continent to Japan. I'd love to visit Samarkand. I'm interested in Isfahan, the city once called half the world. There are quite a few places I'd like to visit if they weren't under communist rule. Doesn't any Japanese YouTuber want to try shouting insults about Xi Jinping in Tiananmen Square? They'd get run over by a tank. With over 1 billion people, domestic tourism should be enough for them.
Did you find this video interesting? We'll keep bringing you fun topics from Japan's online community. Please subscribe to the channel and drop some comments.